Hi, welcome back to the course. In this lesson, we're going to draw a penguin and a cartoon-style bear. To do this, we need to break down our drawings. So I'm going to use a red and paint on the animals so you can see how I break down each area. As you see, I'm drawing everything as ellipses, especially for the penguin because he's quite round anyway. What we need to do is decompose each part of the animal into a basic geometric shape. It's essential that you know how to do this when you're drawing any animal or object you don't know how to draw. You need to reduce it to the most basic shapes possible to later be able to make the more complex ones. In this case especially, the simple shapes are perfect for our cartoon style. You need to know all the angles of the character you're designing, so right now the penguin. It's a good idea to have a profile, front and 3/4 view, so you can really understand the structure of the animal's body from every angle. See how it doesn't change much from the front to the side. The 3/4 is also quite similar. It's made up of big ellipses, a small one for the head, and another 2 smaller ones for the legs and flippers. I'm going to remove the images so you can see how the body works on its own. It's very simple. Now, I'll lower the opacity of this drawing I've made in red so I can draw the cartoon character. I'll choose a darker red to sketch, but you can use whatever colour you like. As we're drawing ellipses, that's what I'll start with. The shape of the head and the shape of the body are basically 2 ellipses. One larger one and one smaller. The body could also be a kind of pear shape, as we're seeing here. The beak is a curved triangle and very easy to draw. To make a character more cartoon-like, we often give it big eyes. Big eyes that pop out always help to make the character and the pose more cartoony. Now I'll lift up the legs slightly, so I make the pose a bit funnier. It's interesting to play with the action lines too. You can start by drawing a line to establish the character's movement, or you could start like me by directly drawing the ellipses of the body, but that's up to you. If you struggle drawing poses, then I recommend you first draw the action lines. This will determine the direction of your character's body. So you saw that it was very easy to draw this penguin. We're now just establishing the difference between the area of black and white with a line. The next penguins I'll draw, I'll speed up the camera as I've already shown you the basic process. What I'm doing here is making the character look up from a frontal view. I'm placing the ellipses after creating the body, but only because this body is quite simple and I already know how it works. In this study phase, you can deform the character as much as you want. You can give it a bigger or smaller body. That doesn't really matter. The important thing is to keep in mind the ellipses and the oval shapes. This penguin here could be a baby penguin. I've made it very small and chubby, but it still works because the basic shapes are well placed. Now what I'm going to do is just double the ellipse, and this way I've quickly made an action line and a new pose for the character. I've still made those basic round shapes that we need for the penguin. Experiment with different poses and elements when you're doing a study of animals, or any object in fact. The important thing is that you have a clear idea of the structure of the character, how it works, and how you can play around with it to establish one pose or another. So see how cute all the penguins look. When you finish, we're going to do the same for the bears. To study the bears, I have these 3 images. I'm going to do the same as I did for the penguins. With a red brush, I'll draw on top of the pictures. I'll start with this bear here. See how I'm just using 2 ellipses for the head, one for the head itself and another for the snout. Then the ears are another 2 little ellipses. The body is more irregular, as of course it has the area of the shoulder blades, so we'll make it like a deformed pear. And with that we have the basic structure of the bear. We can draw the legs like simple ellipses, and the claws are like little triangles. If you close off the upper and the lower parts, you get a large structure for the body and separate ellipses for the legs. The same for the next bear. The head is 2 ellipses and the body can be divided into a big pair or 2 large ellipses. Use more ellipses for the legs. So I'm mainly using these ellipses because they're the best and simplest shapes for the cartoon style, where we usually use round and soft shapes. But you could also use cones or prisms. But right now I'm interested in rounded shapes. The pose for this bear is slightly more complicated, but it still works. I'll use a large ellipse for the body, a cone for the neck, and another ellipse for the head. The legs are once again elongated ellipses. Okay, now this is done, I'll remove the images so you can see the drawing in red. You can understand perfectly that this is a bear. Now, lower the opacity of the red to draw the character properly. So let's go ahead with our cartoon bears. We'll start drawing on a new layer. Again, I'm going to use a darker red to sketch. To start sketching the bear, we'll start with the body. This way we can determine the pose. If you look, it's like drawing a large mountain and then a little one for the neck. I'll make the head in 2 ellipses, one for the head itself and another for the snout. The ears are 2 small circles, and I make big eyes to add that cartoon feel, as I said before. You can correct some areas if you want to make them more stylized, like I've done with the snout. Now I'm going to draw the legs for the character. I recommend that you first draw the ellipses if you're struggling. I'm using the basic structure as that was what we were studying earlier, but you can do it however you like, just try it out. As you can see, if you already know the basic structure of the body and how the limbs work, you can create whatever pose you like. It's basically like rotating a 3D figure. So, once you know the main elements that make it up, you can achieve any pose. I think this bear is looking quite nice, so I'm going to carry on with the rest of the bears. I'll speed up the camera, and that way you won't get bored looking at how I make the structure for each one of the bears. See how I established the ellipses on the character that's sitting down, and I've simply directed the body in a way to create this specific pose. To create the pose, you could use an action line, or you could just do it directly with the body. What I've done is use the ellipses of the body and the legs to establish the initial pose. But you could place the action line first, as I said before. It's whatever is easier for you. The important thing is that you maintain all the structure of the bear's bodies. Observe what we studied and just move it up or down like an articulated doll. After placing the basic shapes, you could add a bit more detail so your drawing has more style. Now that all the bears and penguins are drawn, I'll arrange them on the same canvas. Then you can see the results of our characters. They look very lovely all together. And this is the result of a character study. You could do the same with animated objects or people, of course. So in the next lesson, we're going to learn how to compose our illustration based on the rules of composition and visual weights. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you for the next one.